Hey guys, my name is Nora Franche, and welcome to the podcast Grateful Blessed Mess, daily reflections for those in the 12 steps. I am a fellow 12-stepper and certified mindset coach, and I am here to introduce you to the value of mindset coaching in your 12-step journey. So if you feel like you are stuck in the steps, if you're slipping and sliding with your abstinence, mindset coaching may help you as it did me, and you can find me at catholicmindsetcoaching.com. These episodes are meant to invite you in to consider the truths of 12-step wisdom and to join in the very real struggle of living them in action. I hope that it feels almost like a mini meeting, and I invite you to contribute your own share on the Grateful Blessedness Facebook group to keep the discussion going. My comments are based on my own experience, so feel free to take what you like and leave the rest. But my hope is to encourage you on your own daily 12-step journey. As they say, you cannot stay clean on yesterday's shower. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, guys, we're reading from A Day at a Time, September 29th. In our first weeks or months in the program, our shaky emotional condition sometimes affects our feelings toward old friends and family. For many of us, these relationships heal quickly in the initial stages of our recovery. For others, a time of touchiness seems to persist. Now that we're no longer drinking or using other substances, we have to sort out our feelings about spouses, children, relatives, employers, fellow workers, and even neighbors. Experience in the program over the years has taught me that we should avoid making important decisions early in our recovery, especially emotionally charged decisions about people. Am I becoming better equipped to relate maturely to other people? Today I pray. May my higher power help me through the edginess, the confusion of refeeling and rethinking my relationships, the getting it all together stages of my recovery. May I not rush into new relationships or new situations that demand an investment of my emotions. Not yet. Today I will remember, no entangling alliances too soon. All right. So this just sounds like, boundaries to me, emotional boundaries. They're really, really tough, especially in relationships that are already established. And then, especially in family relationships and romantic relationships. Um, it's really hard, but it's so important. And that's what keeps things healthy. But I almost feel like I'm not the person to even comment on this because I have so much trouble with emotional boundaries, which is why I'm here, which is why I'm one among many, which is why I am on my own journey too. But in the beginning here, I'll give it my best shot, guys. So our shaky emotional condition. First of all, can I just give a heartfelt I love you to all of us, all of you in that shaky emotional condition. And I feel like I find new layers of this every time there's more revealed to me that needs to be worked on and addressed. So like, for example, I remember early in a program hiding in the basement with my sister-in-law because I couldn't be around the stuff that was out for the Thanksgiving holiday without wanting to lose my mind. And she just sat with me in the basement and we talked while I was like just deep breathing in my head because I was so triggered by what was around. And then, fast forward a few years later, where I really started the deep dive of this, interior dig of knowing what's going on inside my own head. And then, going to therapy and kind of seeing like, well, where did I come from and how did these things maybe get formed a bit? And then seeing them come out in family members and identifying things that I don't like anymore because I know that they led to the pain. Not that I don't like anymore, but like that that it almost feels triggering to be around it because you're like, "Yes, that's it. That that is a huge part of all this pain." Not to not own my own part, but we are formed by our families. We are formed by our emotional experiences along the way. And so whether it's the same people or just the same old thing in new people that can trigger us or make us feel emotionally shaky, this touchiness is a sign of our own interior work that is yet to be done. And it says here not to make important decisions or um, like communicating our touchiness. I'm saying it wrong, but we need to be very careful because that touchiness makes it feel, I know for me, that I need to do something urgently. Like like that same disease voice where it's like, do it now, do it now. It's like I need to tell them that they can't act like that. Like that's not okay, that's not appropriate behavior and they need to do their own work because that's and it's like, whoa, slow down, girlfriend. Um that entitled or that self-righteous or just that very defensive and protective, like, you need to take care of you because it's affecting me. And I'm like not comfortable with that. And it's like, okay, that's a progression. That's an improvement that we're identifying things that trigger us or areas of ourselves that can still be triggered. That is progress. That's huge. But we still have to pump the brakes because even if maybe we're no longer indulging in our substance of choice, now is that call to emotional maturity. And if we are still feeling triggered and feel like we need to do something and tell someone else how to be because of a way that we feel, which I think a lot of us do this or want to do it, that is a sign of more interior work that needs to be done because there is this thing called detachment that we get to work on in the interior life. And that includes a detachment from how other people are thinking, feeling, being, acting. And I listened to my sponsor shared this with me a couple of years ago. It was on the recovery show. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, and I do not know what episode it is anymore. But this person was talking about the different levels or progressions of detachment. And there is the one where it is detachment. They were talking about, I remember, they were talking about how, and it was for codependence, how I guess they referred to this person as like their drunk. It was their spouse who was an alcoholic who would get, come home completely drunk and then, the person would have to take care of them. And so they're saying the first level of detachment is, say your drunk comes home and they pass out on the front lawn. This is the situation that they gave. Um, the first level of detachment is that I'm going to mess this up, but you sit in the room and stew about it. And then eventually you're just kind of pissed off and you go out there and you like put a blanket on him and go back inside. And then I guess the level of not detachment is when you try to drag him inside and get him off the lawn. That's not having detachment. That's like, I need to take care of you and I need to fix this. Okay, so then there's a layer of detachment where you're like angry, you're like, what do I do? And then you go outside and put the blanket on them. Then there's the next layer, which is where you're like, well, they should pay for their actions. So you don't put a blanket on them and you actually turn the sprinklers on. And that's a little bit of like an FU kind of attachment. Like, I'm not going to help you, but you should know that what you did is not okay. That's actually not detachment. It's called like bitterness and resentment as the number one offender. And it's just not great. But it is better than trying to fix the other person. Although I guess it's still kind of I think I'm going to start this one over. Okay, so there is a level of detachment, and there's a virtue called, like, disinterestedness, which when I read that, I was like, "Really? Like, that's a really sexy virtue? Like, I'm gonna be disinterested in you." But what it is that we're able to detach ourselves from what the other person is doing because we're giving them their freedom to live in the consequences of their own choices. And also, we are freeing them from our judgment of them. Now, we are allowed to decide whether or not someone is doing something that is good or is bad. And we can remove ourselves from the situation, or we can, take right steps that are okay and protect our boundaries, the things that we value and keep us good and safe. But we also need to, if we are living that virtue of disinterestedness, we aren't forming harsh judgments about what they're doing and and getting into their head and saying, like, I know why you're doing this. We aren't diagnosing them. We aren't trying to figure them out. Anything that comes from a, I know what you're doing, or I know what's best, or I know what's going on here, is not from a heart of compassion and understanding and detachment. And it's only detachment that can allow you to have compassion for someone else's actions that maybe, stepping on your toes, messing up your life in some way, or or somehow connected to you. And so this is something that is, I think it's a high level skill. I think this one is not in the beginner realm. I think the first level is that, FU detachment, where you're like, "Okay, fine. I'm not gonna drag you inside, but I'm gonna, make you pay in some other way." There is that. And if that's where you are, just acknowledge in all humility that you're like, "I know this isn't great, but this is the best that I can do right now." And give that to God and say, "This is the best I can do, make it better." Um, I think I think what I'm getting at is that there's this holy disinterestedness in what other people are doing and who they are that can allow us to be free from that emotional touchiness. We start to have space around them and around ourselves. And I think it has to start with ourselves, where we can start to just, this is acceptance too. We have to accept anything to detach ourselves from it, because otherwise we don't know what to even detach ourselves from. So this is a little bit of a meandering one here. So my apologies, but I want you to think about that. If there's something that is emotionally triggering to you, that makes you very touchy, that makes you want to go over to someone and tell them, you can't do this because it's making me feel blah, blah, blah. Or, you just telling someone you can't act that way. I want you to think about the tone of that thought. And is that thought coming from a compassionate, merciful place? Or is it coming from one of superiority or of urgency, and thinking that you need to fix something? Because if we ever approach someone thinking we need to fix them or what's going on, that's not coming from a place of love. And as funny as it sounds, it is loving someone to let them experience the natural consequences of their actions. And that feels kind of backwards to us emotionally enmeshed people. But from what I understand, that is emotional maturity. And that is how we get space and detachment and disinterestedness. And that's how we get freed from this emotional shakiness that leads to this touchiness. And so I think that's all there is to say about that. Am I becoming better equipped to relate maturely to other people? To let them make their choices, to let them experience the effects of those choices, and for me to love them no matter their choices. With that, I pass. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you feel that mindset coaching could help you on your 12-step journey, please feel free to reach out and find me at catholicmindsetcoaching.com. But more than that, it's important to me to give listeners like yourself a place where you do not need to feel alone on your 12-step journey. And for that reason, I've created a Facebook group. It's called Grateful Blessed Mess. And it's a place where listeners can go to add their own commentary on the share for the day, in addition to my own, and for us just to have a conversation or start a back and forth where people can find support in their 12-step journey. This is not a replacement for 12-step work. This is something outside of the 12 steps. It is simply something that has a heart for the 12 steps and those who are in it. And so, welcome. If you are here, chances are you may also be a bit of a mess. And I hope that you can learn to find some gratitude in the blessings that have come from your messes.